Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And we've simmed ahead a couple of days in this 2030 to 2031 offseason since the last episode. Really have not done anything too exciting. We've been exploring whether there were any options to trade away some of the less attractive players on our team, and unfortunately there were not. So we ended up declining the option for next year for $2.5 million for Gregory Soto, the left-handed reliever who's been with us for a few years, but we're going to be moving on from at this point. And then we also waived and DFA'd four guys who were set to make the major league minimum next year. Shortstop Andy Perez, who's been up with us briefly the last couple years. Sandy Ozuna, a reliever. Caleb Lomavita, who has no options left and we don't really need as our backup catcher anymore after the recent trade for Juan Flores. And then Max Acosta, who was with us a year ago, signed him as a minor league free agent. He ended up making our major league team and obviously getting a major league contract when he did that, but felt that it made sense to move on from those guaranteed contracts, and then also decline the option on Soto, which has allowed us to put another little tentative boost, at least in scouting and player development, and open up a little more money to potentially use this offseason. We're largely going to be running it back with the team that we had last season, with a few notable departures likely. Thinking about Pablo Lopez, Adley Rutschman, the trade that we recently made of Chandler Simpson, Orion Kerkering, Andres Jimenez among them. But we have made a couple of new additions with the addition of Flores at catcher, which I mentioned. And then we also did bring on the shortstop, Mr. Ortiz, who we think can hopefully help strengthen our defense and give us ensure that we're real strong up the middle, even if a player or two gets banged up defensively. So still would love to add more this offseason, but at this point, I think this will be a relatively quick episode. Going to sim through finding out what happens to the arbitration contract offers we made, the one contract extension offer that we did make to Luke Little. The hope is that some of those things will ultimately give us a little bit of boost from the 67 in fan interest that we're at right now, and then find out who exactly is going to be a free agent here in this 2030 to 2031 offseason. If there's a huge international free agent or a huge American veteran free agent pitcher who makes it to the market. And yes, I'm thinking about you, Jared Jones. Then perhaps we'd get very creative in the early stages of the offseason and look to make a transaction with one of our highly compensated players, most likely Gus Nieves, to potentially make a more transformational move for the organization. Otherwise, it is very conceivable that there won't be anything too exciting going on in this offseason, at least in the free agent market for us. I did notice, and I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on what may have happened here, but using our normal views that we always have, we can see the demands for the free agents, but for some reason the demands or the potential demands no longer show for the upcoming free agents. And pretty confident that I didn't change anything, and I'm also pretty confident that you used to be able to see a rough estimate of what their demand might be. So I'm just wondering if maybe somebody knows if something's changed with a recent patch to the game and how that works, or perhaps there was some weird setting that I inadvertently turned off. I can't think of anything that I would do to make that happen. And as I said, looking at the exact same screen, we still see the demands for the actual free agents. But like I said, pretty confident there always used to be an estimate of what the upcoming free agents might be looking for, and for some reason can't see that right now, which is confusing. And we continue to scout the international amateur free agent class. Hopefully we'll have a good sense of which direction we want to go with some of those players in about 2 months when the opportunity to sign them is open. But we did get a trade offer from the Miami Marlins. They're offering us a couple of garbage players with, in the case of Ishmael Perez, a horrible personality. But it did remind me of something else that I wanted to officially do. You may remember in the first draft we picked Jamie Arnold, 4th overall in 2025. And as well as our 5th overall pick in 2026 has worked out with Kevin Roberts Jr., this pick clearly has worked out horribly. Took a gamble on a guy who had some negative personality traits. Typically don't go for many players with low work ethic, but we did experiment in our mini series earlier this year with the Los Angeles Angels and had one very successful draft pick of a pitcher, actually, who had some negative personality traits that still developed into a very good pitcher for us. So that made us a little more willing to experiment. But I think I'm likely to go back to my conservatism around players with problematic personalities. But Arnold, who we haven't seen in the majors since 2028, when he put up a 5.56 ERA over 43 and 2/3 innings, had an ERA of over 10 in 2029, and then last year was bad in AA and was not great in one start in AAA with a 4.15 earned run average. He still has some of those negative personality traits, the low work ethic, the low leadership, the low financial ambition. Doesn't look like he's ever going to be a true major league pitcher. We did waive and DFA him, I think, a year or two ago at this point, so he's not even on the 40-man roster. But he's out of option years, and given his age and given the negative personality traits, been meaning to just kind of do a final wrap-up on the worst draft decision that we've made throughout this playthrough in Mr. Arnold, and officially release him and let him potentially pursue his career someplace else. But it will no longer be with the Colorado Rockies organization. And as we get closer to the start of the award season, starting to get some players signed, minor league contracts, as well as some arbitration eligible players. Cole Carrick will be back for a year. Given that he's so popular, we're hoping we might get a little email saying that we got a boost to fan interest by signing him, but that was not the case. Luke Little, who we were able to kind of sign with some of the money we opened up when we traded away Chandler Simpson, did sign the deal. Was structured the way that I kind of had remembered that I thought it was when I talked about it last episode. 3 years, $18 million, but he's only going to be making $5 million this year, and then we'll have team options at $6 and $7 million for him in the future. If we decide it makes sense, we'll bring him back at those numbers. Otherwise, clearly the potential for things to go year to year. Adael Amador heading into his final season before he can hit free agency, coming off of an outstanding year where he had a 4 WAR for us with a 130 WRC plus. He's going to be making over $8.5 million next year, and the fans were excited to have him back. Marcelo Meyer back as well. Joe Rock, Braden Nett, and Drew Summers also inked their deals. Was hoping we might get a little boost from Joe Rock since he's popular, but it looks like Amador is the only one that caused a material impact from the fans, and even that was only slight. Juan Flores, our new backup catcher, who is arbitration eligible, brought him on board as well. So that puts us in a situation where everyone except Charlie Condon, who is arbitration eligible that we've made an offer to, is signed. And we've gotten a 1 point bump in fan interest. So not the most impactful round of decision making for us, but we're slightly better than we were a few days ago. And in something you don't see all that often in arbitration negotiations, Charlie Condon has come back to us and says that he wants a little more money. He does have high financial ambitions, so we'll see if we can offer him a little bit more. It's not a crazy number regardless. Expect it to be about 1.664 million, but we'll see if we can get Condon locked up for what could be his final year with us. Gold Glove Awards also announced today, and a lot of awards for our Rockies. Andres Jimenez, who we signed last year, was one and done with us, but he ends up winning his 8th Gold Glove in the last 9 seasons, his first in the National League at second base. Charlie Condon, who we were just talking about, hasn't hit incredibly well for us, but very good defender at first base, and he wins the first Gold Glove of his career. And then Braden Knapp, who led the National League with 18 victories this year and made his first All-Star team, also wins the first Gold Glove award of his young career. And with some relievers that had big-time seasons for us, we thought we might have a chance at having a National League Mariano Rivera Award winner. But Joan Duran of the Dodgers had a monster season with a 1.31 ERA, 44 saves, and 41 shutdowns to 4 meltdowns. So he once again won another Mariano Rivera Award, which has been a frequent occurrence of him. Wellington Herrera, our closer, who led the league with 51 saves, finished second in the voting. The soon-to-be leaving our team, Ryan Kerkering, who was an outstanding stopper for us, led the league in games and holds, finished 5th in the voting, and got the other 2 first-place votes. And then Gregory Santos, who we recently decided to exercise a $5 million option on for next year, did not get any first-place votes, but with his sub-2 ERA and over a strikeout per inning, he ended up finishing 4th in the voting this year. So no winners, but still a strong representation by our Rockies bullpen. Over in the American League, Jack Dreyer of the Twins, 40 saves, 2.28 ERA, was named the Mariano Rivera Award for the American League. And another day, another situation where our Rockies, coming off of a good season, are competing for some awards. And we did get a Silver Slugger this year. Gus Nieves, who tied for the league lead in homers, led the league in ribbies, also led the league in runs and slugging percentage, with the second Gold Glove, or second Silver Slugger of his career this year at DH. 2 years ago, he was named the Silver Slugger in right field in a season when he also won the MVP and the Rookie of the Year for us. And as we continue moving forward through awards season in the early stages of this offseason, did get Charlie Condon signed for a bit more money. We've also hired Jeremy Ross as a pitching coach for our DSL team. Excellent in terms of teaching pitching, good with development and mechanics. Was not our first choice and ended up costing more than we would have hoped ideally, but we wanted to get someone who was solid into that loan opening that we had. Our recently extended manager, Toby Staveland, all he's done in 5 years in Colorado is lead our team to the playoffs 5 consecutive seasons. And after the 103-win season this past year, he was honored with his first Manager of the Year award. So we've now made it to the end of award season. 3 Gold Gloves, a Silver Slugger, and a Manager of the Year ends up being all of the hardware, I guess, in addition to a National League pennant that our Rockies earned this year. Over in the American League, in very unsurprising news, Garrett Crochet, 14-6 with a league best 2.72 ERA, 235 strikeouts, league best strikeout per nine, and FIP minus ratios in a 5.8 WAR. The left-hander wins the Cy Young Award for the Minnesota Twins. Over in our league, the National League, Jordan Woods, your unanimous Cy Young Award winner for the Chicago Cubs. The left-hander, 16-4, leading the league in strikeouts, ERA, WHIP, strikeouts per nine, FIP minus, and pitcher WAR at 6.7. Our ace, Jesus Luzardo, finished fourth in the voting behind Woods, Yamamoto, and Skeens. Luzardo, if you'll recall, was 17-5 with a 2.78 earned run average for the Rockies this past season. Jared Jones, who still does look like he's potentially headed to free agency, finished sixth in the voting. If he does end up not signed over the next week or so and is a free agent, depending on what his demand is, that could certainly change our relatively non-existent expectations for pursuing players in free agency this upcoming offseason. Over in the American League, Lazaro Montes, a second most valuable player award in the past 3 seasons, led the American League in runs, homers, ribbies, slugging percentage, OPS, WRC plus, and batter WAR at 6.9. Here in the National League, James Wood of the Washington Nationals, monster season for him. 316 average, 39 doubles, tied for the league best with 7 triples, 31 homers, 100 runs scored, 110 ribbies, 25 steals, leads the league in OPS and WRC plus, and he is, not surprisingly, your National League most valuable player. Our Gus Nieves, who, as we talked about, did win a Silver Slugger this year, got 3 first-place votes, finished second in the voting, just ahead of PCA. No one else on our Rockies received votes. So despite the 103 wins, not a ton of support for our Rockies as far as the individual awards. It was definitely more of a broad-based team effort, with Nieves certainly the standout in terms of his power numbers and his ability to drive in runs compared to anybody else on our squad. And we're headed to salary arbitration tomorrow in the start of free agency, just a couple days after that. Gonna run a little bit of an audible here. It looks like Orion Kirkring's demands have come down just a little bit. He was looking for around $12 million a year. I think it might have been 11.6. Now he's looking for 10.6 a year over 4 years. He wants a guaranteed role as a closer, which I don't think we want to give him, and we don't want to pay him that kind of money, but I have at least temporarily pulled some money out of our player development budget to give me enough flexibility to at least float the idea of an offer to bring Kirkering back. Certainly would be a big step in ensuring that we've got the best bullpen in baseball if we're able to add him into the likes of Little and Santos and Gibson and Herrera, among others. Given that he was looking for even more than this before, and now, as I noted, looking for $10.6 million a year for 4 years, I don't think this structure will be attractive to him at all, but I'm at least going to throw it out there before he hits free agency. This would be an average of $9 million a year for 3 years, but it's really a 1-year, $7 million deal, most likely. Presumably, we would not exercise the $10 million option next year, although if we somehow got a nice boost to our budget, it could work. Also not going to lie and promise him the closer role when we would really want him back as a high-volume stopper like he was a year ago. So I think it's very unlikely that when we ask him for a response, he's going to be willing to think about this. And there's also no guarantees that with just a few days until the start of free agency that he'd even sign before he hits free agency. But if we can get him back for just $6 million next year, feels like something we should do. Not surprisingly, he's not really interested in that. Still wants the closer role and still wants pretty similar money without team options. Didn't think it was ultimately going to go anywhere, but wanted to at least get an offer out there. And depending on how the free agent market looks, maybe there will be something else for us to consider with Kerkering in the coming weeks and months. And we've made it to the start of free agency. Looks like close to a dozen international free agents entering the market. So we'll take a quick look at maybe whether there will be any answers to our starting pitching or relief needs in the pool of players there, and then pivot and see who actually ended up filing in the United States with experienced major leaguers as well. At least according to our scout, not necessarily a ton of real interesting players. The left-hander Hiramasu Konu looks like he could be a useful middle relief arm out of the bullpen. And another reliever, Mitsunobu Yamamoto. Really nice stuff, but don't think that either of these guys are huge impact players, and with Yamamoto looking for $6.5 million and definitely having a reliever type profile, don't think there's necessarily anything to do there. There is a big time third baseman though. Right fielder Hirokazu Takura, not all that exciting. But Willis Alvarez out of Cuba, 26-year-old, going to be looking for over $30 million a year. High loyalty and work ethic, low financial ambition. He's got a gun, great arm at third base, above average range for an infielder. His error and double play ratings aren't great, but think that his gap power, his home run power, and his eye are all potentially world class. Solid contact hitter, decent at avoiding strikeouts. Given that we did just hopefully draft our third baseman of the future with our first round pick in the draft a few months ago, and he's a college player that's not too far away, I don't know that getting rid of Mr. Nieves and trying to pivot to Honey Bear Alvarez makes a ton of sense for us, but certainly something we can consider. Taking a more fulsome look at the top free agents available, and Jared Jones did make it to the market. Middle infielders Neto and Volpe, along with Tyler Fitzgerald and Jackson Holliday at only 26 years old, highlighting the list. I'm guessing most of those guys are going to be relatively expensive for us. Corbin Carroll, if we're looking for an outfielder, Mason Miller, Emmanuel Clase, and are typically have frequently been free agents in recent years, generally not signing real long contracts but making a lot of money. And then Kyle Bradish or Jacob deGrom, if we want guys who are older, coming off of pretty significant injuries. But given that we did make the trade for Ortiz, and we've also got Meyer, Amador, and Tovar as middle infield third base types, don't know that we go too hard at the likes of Neto, Volpe, Fitzgerald, or Holliday, although they're certainly all high-end players. But Jared Jones, he's only looking for $34 million, only $34 million. But it's rare for a potential ace to be on the market, and I guess he technically hasn't been the number one starter in Pittsburgh since he's been on a team with Paul Skeens. But he's a two-time All-Star in 26 and 27. And over the course of his 6 seasons with Pittsburgh, he went 65 and 58 with a 3.48 ERA and a WAR of close to 20. He's led or tied for the National League lead in games started 3 straight years, so he's been durable, although his injury proneness is only normal. But certainly a interesting option to consider. And the price tags now that maybe that's a recent change, or maybe I'm just horribly remembering things, but I feel like I always used to be able to see potential demands for guys who would be free agents in the future as well. Regardless, I think I had said that I thought Jared Jones could be looking for upwards of $34 million. You know, as we sit here with the money that we freed up through some of the guys that we cut, and then saving a little bit in arbitration as the offseason gets underway, got a little less than $10 million to spend. Obviously, still could always tweak scouting and player development budgets if we wanted to. But if we wanted to be incredibly bold, we could try to make an offer for Jared Jones. 7 years, $34 million average, wants a player opt-out, wants a guaranteed spot in the starting rotation. That's certainly not something that would keep us from bringing him on board. Obviously, we don't have the money to do it right now, but if we were to get Gus Nieves off the books, that would open up the opportunity for us to potentially go after Jared Jones. It would certainly weaken our offense. We've talked a lot in recent episodes about all the good young outfielders we have on the way, and Nieves was penciled in as our likely DH for next year. So I think we've got bodies with the likes of Christian Arguelles, Trent Clausen, Brandon Tunink, who were all up with us at times last year and will be fighting for 4th and 5th outfielder spots this upcoming season. Feel like we've got a body on the team who's a major league quality player, and we could certainly mix and match to find designated hitters, but we definitely don't have any batters on the team like Gus Nieves. 45 homers, 114 ribbies, as we've talked about, led the league in both of those categories, and you can see nobody else in the tentative starting lineup, which admittedly is missing a few players at this point and being pieced together without a lot of input from us, hit more than 16 homers last year, so that would be a huge potential gap in the lineup that we'd be counting on the likes of the return of Ezekiel Tovar and great rookie season from Kevin Roberts Jr. to kind of help replace some of the production we got from Nieves. But before we finish things up, we will at least shop him around to see if we decide to move on from Mr. Nieves now, what the options might be to get that contract off the books. And it's interesting, a little less robust of a market than we've seen for him in the past. And in most cases, we'd have to take a big contract back to bring him on board. But if we did just want to dust him, there are some interesting players that the Mets and the Giants are offering that aren't making crazy money. Second baseman Boston Barrow, versatile defensive player, been slightly above average offensive player for the Mets the last couple years. He is signed to an extension that would be paying him some decent money in a few years, but that's a number that we could certainly take on. Jet Williams, not that we've got a screaming need for middle infielders, but another lower-priced guy that we could think about bringing on board. Edwin Arroyo from the Giants could be a very interesting glove. He's actually claimed on waivers from the A's at one point. Yeah, just right before the start of this past season. And not a great offensive player, but still a switch hitting infielder. Still a couple years of arbitration eligibility. If we're thinking that the likes of Meyer, Amador, and possibly even Tovar might be getting too expensive for us, bringing a guy like Arroyo into the organization could be a path to consider. And then there's some veteran starters as well. Cole Reagans, although he's making a lot more money. Joe Whitman, don't love the personality. Kyle Harrison, competent left-handed major league starter, although the fly ball tendencies might not play perfectly in Coors. Brandon Sproat, like the extreme ground ball tendencies there. Max Fried with a couple years left for the Yankees. 6-11 with a 3.90 ERA last year. He's fragile physically. We would definitely want a team to, if we took on a contract like that, to keep a huge chunk of it. I mean, I can't imagine that the Hunter Browns, the Riley Greens, the Austin Wells, that their teams are going to be willing to keep huge chunks of those contracts. That would clearly make those type of players more palatable to us if we could have the teams retain huge chunks of those contracts and still get Nieves off the books. But I'll just do one example here and have no idea where it's going to go with Riley Green. But given that he's got 6 years left at $31.5 million a year, my assumption is that the Tigers are not going to be willing to keep they can't even keep any of his contract. Basically, they're just looking to get him off the books and get Nieves, who they like a little more and is signed for fewer years on the books. I'd imagine it's a similar-ish situation if we wanted Hunter Brown from the White Sox. Although if we brought Hunter Brown on board, with the ground ball tendencies, the good movement, he's older than Jones is. I think, Hunter Brown, if we made this trade, and I'm sure the White Sox aren't going to retain much, if any, of his contract. Yeah, they'd retain 15% of it, but that would just be we really want a top starter, and we're going to go for the bird in hand and bring Hunter Brown on board for Gus Nieves rather than fooling around with bidding for Mr. Jones. So some interesting decisions. The last thing I will do is also just take a look at any prospect packages that might be out there for Pex Nieves. Because again, if we could get the contract off the books, that's sadly, given how good he is, the primary goal. With the money he's making, not really a lot of options there. Glenn Moel of the Giants organization looks really more like a reliever than a potential starting pitching prospect. Not a bad prospect, but trading away a guy who's led the National League in homers and ribbies 2 of the last 3 years and is still in his 20s for a potential reliever who was picked in the 15th round about 16 or 17 months ago. Probably not going to make you very popular with the fans. Trading away an extremely popular player like Nieves also not going to make you very popular with the fans. But a very interesting decision and debate that we do have ahead of us here, because there are some options. I'll run another shop attempt on Nieves here. I'm sure it's going to be the exact same players, but just don't want to have to go back and look at the video to see who's available. I really like the idea of just running back this 103 win team that has a lot of youth coming on it and keeping our options to get away from Nieves probably a year from now on the table, particularly with the fact that we're not really going to get a young superstar for him, and even the better players that we're going to get from him are going to enable us taking on a big contract. So realistically, we probably, if we decide we want to go after Jones, probably need to be talking to teams like the Mets or the Giants, who seem to have more interest in him than others and are willing to take on that contract while not sending a huge contract back to us in return. So ultimately, this is a potential huge decision point and potential huge turning point for our franchise. We could get Nieves off the books. And with the money that we do have to spend by getting Nieves off the books and the money we've kind of gotten available to us, we could make a very serious run at bringing Jared Jones on board. That said, it's likely paying a guy up through his mid-30s, signing him to a 6 or 7 year deal, most likely. Bigger dollars per year, or pretty close dollars per year, maybe when all was said and done, to what we're paying for Nieves. But Jared Jones and his career 115 ERA plus and 90 FIP minus would certainly fit pretty nicely at the top of our rotation. Allow Luzardo to move down. Shader is healthy finally, so that's good to see, even though he missed the playoffs. So kind of a situation right now where we like our top three with Luzardo, Shader, and Net. None of them are aces. Right now it's probably Painter and Rock as our 4-5. So clearly, if we were able to add somebody like Jones into the mix, that pushes all of these other guys down a spot in the rotation and makes the rotation look even better. There is an argument, though, we can probably get Nieves off the books next year. Our offense this year will clearly be better with Nieves as part of it. And with the fact that we're going to have to be paying the likes of Isaiah Shader and Braden Net in the not-too-distant future if we want to keep them around. And we do have the young Leo Martinez, who we have already signed to a 15-year extension on the way. Do we just keep Nieves for this upcoming year, let Jones go somewhere else, and then perhaps engage next offseason with what probably won't be as robust a crop of starting pitchers as we see right now, as some of these guys will likely sign extensions, but Yamamoto will be 33, Max Meyer and Shane Baz will both be 32, and Taj Bradley will be 30 next offseason, but potentially some Logan Gilbert, Cole Reagans, Kumar Rocker, definitely some interesting names, and certainly at the top end with the likes of Meyer and Yamamoto, there's guys who are similar pitchers to Jones who might be available in a year. But they're both older than Jones is right now, and who knows if they'll actually hit free agency. So to me, the pivotal decision to think about, and I'm sure if you're a member of the Worldwide Scouting Department, which you all are as viewers of the series, tend to think there will be some opinions on Do we trade Nieves and perhaps try to sign Jared Jones? Or do we just kind of run with the team that we thought we would have next year and think that with the likes of Luzardo, Shader, Net, and Rock, who all won 13-plus games for us this year, Painter, who we hope can bounce back in his second season in Colorado, and then perhaps as importantly as anything, Mr. Martinez on the way, we're set enough at starting pitcher for next season, and with the likes of Shader and Martinez, maybe we've got our future ace in the organization right now, and we don't need to chase a guy who's going to be turning 30 in the not too distant future all that hard. So a lot of interesting decisions that I'll be thinking about between now and the next episode. And as I noted, if you have any opinions on what we should do, I would love to hear them. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.